Hello. It's your favorite Elden Ring gamer girl and video editor, M. You may be wondering, M, why are you using text-to-speech? Well, there's two reasons. The first one, as for why I'm not doing my own voiceover, is because I have seen the things that people on YouTube feel entitled to say about people's voices, and I want absolutely no part in that from anybody. The second one, as for why I'm using a voice in this video when I usually just do text captions, is because there's a lot of content in this video to cover that would make pacing or parsing text-only commentary too difficult. Text-to-speech is actually something that I've been interested in experimenting with for a while, and the Surgery Girl video was all about experimenting as a video editor. As in all things, I like to fuck around and find out. I figure that the first thing I should do is explain the Surgery Girl. This actually dates back to a different surgery that I underwent in July of 2021. While recovering at my friend's house, we developed a joke that I was entitled to anything and everything because I was the surgery girl.
Can you refill my water for me, please, pretty please? You have to do this for me, I'm the surgery girl, come on, I'm the surgery girl and I'm so thirsty.
That kind of thing. So when I underwent a sudden appendectomy and was once more in recovery, I was the surgery girl yet again, and since this character is something of a self-insert, this build was named the Surgery Girl too. As for the surgery itself, it went very well and my recovery was also great. The hospital stay itself was actually very complicated because I found out during admission that I was also positive for COVID-19. I didn't have any COVID symptoms and I certainly wasn't in the hospital for COVID, but because I was positive, it was very difficult to get me into a surgical theater. I also had to be isolated the entire time, and I could not eat because I had to have an empty stomach in case I got called in for a suddenly open surgery time slot, so I was alone and starving in the hospital for close to 30 hours. Needless to say, it sucked. But enough about me. What you've been watching so far is just some footage that I recorded for the Surgery Girl video that I never really found a place for, or that I never got an idea to do anything with. The way that I make videos is just by recording an incredible amount of footage. I always record my gameplay, and whenever something funny or interesting happens, I clip it right away, and that builds up a stockpile. For invasion characters, I'll record whole invasions and save them if they're good, and every video gets a very descriptive file name so that I know what happens in it later at a glance. However, despite any first impressions that I may have, it's usually once I'm in my video editor that I can really separate the wheat from the chaff. No place like the project timeline to realize just how boring or unimpressive a clip actually is. Another thing to consider in making videos like this is the diversity of material. While halfway through this project, I realized that I was fighting with my halberd too much and barely had any kills with the regalia of Eocade. The regalia is my favorite weapon, my baby, my arm, and the sole reason for this build existing, so I went back into the game to record more footage and made a point to use my halberd less. I wasn't necessarily looking for the most spectacular footage on the planet with the regalia, but I just needed more footage of the sword so that the overall video would feel less homogeneous in its action. I ran into the opposite problem with the shortbow and the parry footage. I had plenty of shortbow footage, but a lot of it was the same, me trying and failing to blow people up with barrels. I realized that all of this footage would work together if combined into a single holistic segment about how frustrating it is to keep just barely missing those barrels. Since that whole segment was slower, quieter, and less edited, it was also the perfect way to put a breather between the first and third segments of the video, which are faster paced and more dramatically edited. I also want to apologize for getting people's hopes up by putting rainbow stone arrows in the loadout overview at the start of the Surgery Girl video, but not even using them in any of the clips. I swear that I actually did have a lot of rainbow stone arrow footage, but I mostly used them to be cheeky or just as a heckling tool, and none of those clips wound up fitting into the final product. This clip in particular haunts me especially because I absolutely could have killed this phantom with a rainbow stone arrow, but because I was in Stormvale where all the explosive barrels are, I had fire arrows equipped instead, and I wound up using a serpent arrow anyway. I'll be doing 40 lashes in the public square this Thursday at noon to atone for this sin. I hope you can forgive me. As for parries, the thing about parries is that they're always very cool to pull off as a gamer but not necessarily interesting to watch as a viewer. A good rule of thumb that I have for all of the footage I curate is asking, what does this clip really do or what does it demonstrate? What does it add to the project as a whole, even if it just adds to the pacing or rhythm of it? Never are these questions more important than when assessing parry footage, because the very nature of parry and riposte kills are that they're all basically the same. So they had better be very good parries in context. This is why the Surgery Girl video only ended up with two, the one in the loadout overview, and the one at the end, where parrying the host's fully charged R2 was the only thing that saved me from their over-leveled phantom. Speaking of parrying, let's talk about sound editing. Editing sound and music synchronization is my favorite part of the editing process. There are many parts in the Surgery Girl video where I had to mute the audio of the footage and manually redub its sound so that I could either achieve a better audio balance, isolate the single sound that I wanted from the footage, or add a crossfade or lead-out effect into the next clip. It's very subtle once it's complete, but it's very satisfying once it works. The parry in the loadout overview, as well as the guard break and dragon roar in the clip we're watching now, were manually redubbed. This was something I've done a few times in older videos, but the most badass PvE kill ever video was where I really figured it out. Oh. And the rune arc and host vanquished sounds. Those fucking sounds had to be manually de-amplified in basically every clip because no matter what volume of the game I play it, they are basically deafening compared to the rest of the footage. Every clip had to get balanced and equalized, as did every sound effect. This sequence. Was probably the most difficult to balance due to how many sound effects were playing on top of each other, how loud the guard break and critical sounds are, and the music playing underneath. Now, about those external sound effects. I acquired a lot of them for this video, which is new. I've used plenty of sound effects before, but I think my editing style was much more graphic and visual overall. But since I like sound editing so much I just wanted to experiment with more of it. The sound effects come from a lot of different sources but the main sources were games for the Nintendo 64. Did you know that Donkey Kong 64 has nearly 1,000 unique sound effects? Did you know that the only complete collection of these sound effects online is not labeled or organized at all, requiring manually sorting through them if you want to use them for anything? And did you know that if you mess up this process it can result in mislabeling or file corruptions that can render almost your whole stash useless after the fact? Because I sure know this. I sure do know this. But I'm not mad. If anybody asks, you have to tell them that I'm not mad. I'm not mad, I'm the Surgery Girl. I also wanted to talk about the music for this video. Originally, the entire first part of the video was going to be set to the Looker battle theme from Pokemon Masters GX. However, the part of the song that plays under the introduction is actually the entire loop of the song. It's only about 40 seconds. Once I realized that, I knew I needed something longer. I thought of a few different possible tracks, but very serendipitously the night before I started editing the video's sequence, my husband and I watched our favorite Christmas and New Year's movie, Tokyo Godfathers. The music in that film is phenomenal, and the chase music from the climax of the film was exactly the kind of thing that I was looking for. Tokyo Godfathers is a movie all about serendipity and coincidence and miracles, so the appropriateness of this lightbulb moment in the creative process isn't lost on me. Originally, the second part of the video was going to use this generic, unnamed track from the game Army Men, Sarge's Heroes for the Nintendo 64 to give a more militaristic and stealthy atmosphere. The third part of the video also went through several different music options, including this one from Team Fortress 2. And this one from Mario Party 2. The idea was to very suddenly contrast the second part with a much more exciting song, but it also had to be a little goofy, because the third part of the video was full of goofier clips. Eventually, I tried the Wanderer's theme from Tokyo Godfathers on the second part of the video, and not only did its more meandering and melancholy sound fit the comical frustration of that segment, but being a more complicated piece of music than the Army Men song made it feel less dull. Again, in a wonderful coincidence, the Wanderer's theme was the exact perfect length for that segment. It was too perfect. And once that was decided, it only felt natural to make the third piece pull from Tokyo Godfathers as well, and again, the main title theme was just the exact perfect song. Let this be a lesson that inspiration can come from very sudden and unlikely places. That's plenty about sound, now let's discuss video. The first thing that I do when making compilations is take all of the footage that I have and see what edits I can do to it visually or sonically, and then I start arranging them and cutting them in order once I've decided on the music and can feel the tone, pacing, and rhythm of the project much more clearly. It also lets me figure out what editing ideas do and do not work prior to committing anything to its place in the video's sequence, but I'll get more into the deleted scenes later. The first clip in an invasion compilation is always the most difficult to choose because I feel like it has to be a clip that shows off as much about the build as possible at once. This clip of me fighting Kanye West isn't really that impressive from a PvP standpoint, but it was one of the few clips that I had where I used this much of my arsenal. He's poisoned, I corkscrew him with the regalia, and I get a hit with Spectral Lance. The only joke that I had in mind at first was the one about his health bar being suspended. Between him and the host named Dragon, there's a lot of inspiration and humor that can come from player names alone. The Pokemon Stadium announcer lines came later just to cover up how the fight isn't actually that interesting since Kanye plays pretty poorly, although I do commend him for using explosive clumps. Originally, it was only but the pause before the suspension joke felt awkward. Adding more sound bridged the gap in a way that I think made the edit more elegant.
Oops, that's a miss. There, it's a hit. Here's the payback. And it's down. There goes the battle.
My favorite edit in the video is this transition with Margit's Shackle. The order in which I actually got these kills is backwards. I got the hero's grave kill first and the Stormveil double kill was my next invasion. This was one of those moments where I'm thinking of the video as I play the game, and realized after killing that host in Stormveil that I could create this exact match cut later. And so I did. One of those rare and exciting instances where my video editor brain and my gamer brain collide and hold hands and also make out a little bit. My other favorite edit has got to be the skateboarding phantom. While playing this invasion, seeing this phantom scrape across the ground like a statue at running speed made me laugh so hard I almost split my appendectomy stitches. At first I experimented with a stone scraping sound. But I had already used this sound to accentuate the turret rising out of the floor in the Margit's Shackle clip, since it's a little hard to identify the cause and effect otherwise. So then I got the idea of skateboarding effects, and I opened my folder of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater sounds and got to work. The synchronization of the sounds, including the slight fade in as he skates in from off screen, took a lot of tweaking to get just right. The entire edit was actually very challenging, because not only did I have to create the trick font's appearance from scratch, but controlling the zoom effect to follow the phantom's movements exactly was a challenge. There's many challenges like this in video editing, but they're very fun and satisfying challenges, like solving a puzzle. And after watching this video so many times in review, this is the one edit that still makes me laugh, so I think it got solved pretty well. Okay, now for the fun part of deleted scenes. The end of the first part with the winged misbegotten was another edit that was a lot of fun to put together, but something you may have noticed during this part was the amount of damage dealt to the host, 666. The number of the beast. Originally I was going to have a devil and flames pop up over the damage box. but the problem was that this kill is synchronized to the end of the song in the first part. This point in the footage was inflexible relative to the music, and obviously the appearance of the winged misbegotten was inflexible unless I did some very tricky editing to stretch the footage out somehow. The winged misbegotten also served as a vital button to end the first segment of the video on, so that the hard cut to the second segment feels natural. Basically, this point in the video was too dense to fit this devil edit into without it feeling overburdened or just far too busy on the eyes and ears. So the devil had to be cut. The original ending that I had in mind for the first part was this clip of me invading into Castle Morn, and seeing from afar that the host has two massively over-leveled phantoms. This worked decently enough, but the clip that I had in mind for the end of the video where I use the trick mirror talisman to appear as a CO operator, and parry riposte kill the host, also involved an over-leveled phantom joke. Maybe this is just me, but I feel like all the bitching about over-leveled phantoms that can be done has already been done. What else is there to say? As an invader, it sucks. I felt like doing more than one joke about it would be too much on principle, so this clip from Castle Morn and some of the unused footage that I included earlier in this video got cut. A similar joke was going to be about this party in Stormvale.
Ready? Go!
This joke, while funny, just couldn't find a place in the main video, mostly because it depended on a hard cut in the audio. No real complicated production reason there. Another cut joke was this text box that would appear during the double kill in Stormvale. This got cut just because it added nothing and, similar to the devil in Castle Morn, just made the joke that I was already doing feel too dense and busy. I didn't record any Pokemon game footage, either. I manually made that text box by manually creating each frame in an image editor. Still, a big part of video editing that I can be proud of is knowing when to cut my losses. This clip was much clearer, and better, without it cluttering on top of it. The only other deleted scene that I can think of is that I originally recorded my B-roll footage for the loadout overview from the introduction against all PvE. I'm really glad that I decided to use PvP footage instead, since it's obviously much more appropriate for an invasion video. The highlight of this PvE footage is just what happened when I tried to get some kills with Spectral Lance. Elden Ring is a really difficult video game. Oh, actually, I do have one more clip to show you. Despite what the second segment of the Surgery Girl video may suggest, I actually did get a single explosive barrel kill with this character, but it was while playing co-op, so it felt incongruent to add it to this video as is. Still, enjoy this clip with me, because it's really funny. No edits needed. This guy just exploded really good. I think that this is all from me today. The Surgery Girl build was a tremendous amount of fun to create, and is a tremendous amount of fun to play, and it's already gotten better as a build since that video was published, so you will probably see her again sometime in the future. I would like to do more commentated invasions like I've done for the Priest of Rosas and Frankenstein, but as I've gotten better and more experienced as an invader, I've lost a little bit of that angle I had before of somebody learning something new and looking up. Still, if I can get a good invasion that really does show off a cool strategy or encounter from start to finish, I'd be excited to take it to the editing room. These videos are only as good as the footage I can get and the ideas I can have, after all. Thank you for watching. XOXO, and see you next time.